Chapter 4 of Nip and Tuck by a Self-Made Man. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4, in which Tuck buys C.O.D. stock and gets into a mix-up with broker Savage. That evening, Tuck came down from Harlem to Proctor's Fifth Avenue Theater, and as he was approaching the entrance, he saw a cab stop in front of the playhouse, and out of it stepped Billings and Hoffman Howes, whom Tuck knew by sight. They entered the theater, and when the boy got to his seat, he saw the two men in a private box. Tuck watched them at intervals, and saw that they were engaged in earnest conversation most of the time. They left when the show was about half over. "Guess I can count on that consolidation," mused Tuck. "PD&Q closed at 47 today, so I guess I'll go out and get into C.O.D. before the announcement is made on the exchange and the stock commences to boom." Next morning he called on a broker named Goodwin, who had promised to allow him a certain commission on all business he brought him. "I have just sold 1,000 shares of PD&Q at 47 and a fraction through the American Bank, which bought it for me some days ago on a 10% margin. Their check for $11,000 and statement of account will reach me early tomorrow. Here's a memorandum to that effect for Mr. White, the gentleman who attends to that department in the bank. Will you buy me 1,700 shares of C.O.D. at 65, the last quotation, on a margin of 10% if I give you an order directing the American Bank to pay the money over to you? Here's $50 to make up the difference." "All right," agreed broker Goodwin, after he had figured the matter up and found that the margin came to $11,050. "Write your order, and I'll buy the stock if I can get it at 65. Buy it anyway, even up to 65 and a half. I'll make up the difference as soon as you notify me to that effect," said Tuck. "Have you a phone in your office?" asked the broker. "No, sir, but I intend to have one put in within a few days," answered the boy. "You had better call around in half an hour, then," said Goodwin, making out a memorandum of the transaction. "I'll have the stock by that time." Tuck dropped in at the appointed time and found that the stock had been secured at even 65. Well pleased at this, he returned to his office. Instead of entering his own den, he rapped on Nip's door and entered in response to the usual invitation. He found Nicholas contemplating with a great deal of satisfaction Billings and Company's check for $2,500, which represented the amount of his commission for the C.O.D. stock purchased by him for that firm. "Been doing some business, I see," said Tuck, taking a seat. "A little," replied Nip, putting the check out of sight. "So have I," grinned Tuck. "Got a safe, haven't you?" "Yes, I wanted a safe place to put my valuable papers. Mine was moved in yesterday, but I haven't anything to put in it yet. How did you know I was in, Tuck?" "Heard you," chuckled his friend. "I wasn't aware I was making any noise," replied Nip in surprise. "You forgot that new scarf of yours is loud enough to be heard on the next floor." "How? Get out." "Suppose we both get out and have some lunch. I'll let you stand treat as you appear to be making all the money." As they left the office, Nip told Tuck about Augustus Totten, Redstone's clerk, and his two friends calling upon him the previous day for the purpose of having some fun at his expense, and how he had taken the wind out of their sails. Tuck laughed heartily at the takedown his friend had given them. "You let them down good and hard. Serves 'em right. Totten threatened to get back at me for it." "Did he? I guess he'll survive." "Redstone was in to see me the day we moved into the building," continued Nip. "He seems to think you and I are too young for the street. Told me he thought it'd be a good thing for the exchange to establish a kindergarten for amateur brokers like us. What do you think of that?" "He said that, did he?" "That's what he did, and I gave him a shot for it to send him out of the office looking like 7 days of stormy weather." The two boys sought a quick lunch house on Broad Street. After they had eaten all they wanted, they came out again and headed for Wall Street. As they were passing the exchange, a big man with a pair of fierce Burnside whiskers and weighing something like 250 pounds came rushing out, apparently in a great hurry. The two boys happened to be right in his path, but the man, instead of trying to avoid a collision, deliberately butted into Tuck, sending him sprawling on the sidewalk. The incident, however, resulted in further complications, which caused much amusement to the passer-by and gradually drew a crowd to the spot. Tuck, in falling, got his legs tangled up with the stout man's pedal extremities in such a way that the big fellow plunged head foremost into the gutter. "Serve you right, you big stiff," said Nip as he helped his friend to his feet. "Better sneak, young fellows," whispered a bystander with a broad grin. "What for?" retorted Nip, not pleased with the suggestion. "Your friend has upset one of the biggest guns in the street, and he'll be raising merry thunder around here in less than 5 seconds. That's Broker Savage." "I don't care who he is," said Tuck, brushing off his clothes. "He's nothing better than a loafer to knock me down in that fashion and then try to walk over me. Does he imagine that he owns the sidewalk?" "That's right, Tuck. I'll stand by you," said Nip encouragingly. Broker Savage had been assisted to his feet by a couple of spectators, and he looked as mad as a bull in a china shop. "Where's that young ruffian who tripped me up?" he sputtered, glaring around. "I'm right here," spoke up Tuck defiantly. "You want to apologize?" "What?" gasped the stout broker, almost foaming at the mouth with rage. "What's that?" "I asked if you wanted to apologize for your ungentlemanly conduct in running into and upsetting me on the sidewalk," repeated Tuck coolly. You whippersnapper! What do you mean?" A roar of laughter went up from the crowd at this sally, and the broker's face crimsoned with fury. "You young villain! You threw me into the gutter, and I'm going to have you arrested." "Just try it on. I'll bring a dozen witnesses who saw what you did to me. That'll make you take water." "Do you know who I am?" thundered the broker seriously. "I understand your name is Savage, and judging from the exhibition you're making of yourself now, I should say it fitted you like a glove." At that moment a newsboy, who had chased the stout broker's hat halfway across Broad Street, recovering it after a passing horse had put his hoof through the crown, now pushed his way forward and offered the man his battered headgear. The sight of his mutilated property so angered Broker Savage that he fetched the kid a slap across the face with his big hand, and that act removed every vestige of sympathy from his side of the case. The boy on revenge kicked him on the shins and then scooted out of sight while the spectators jeered and made various uncomplimentary remarks concerning the stout broker. A policeman was now seen approaching the crowd, which was growing bigger every moment. "We better get away from here," whispered Nip. "Here comes a cop." Tuck thought prudence the better part of valor under the circumstances, and so both of the boys began to worm their way out of the crowd. "Don't let them get away!" roared Savage, reaching out to grab Tuck. But the spectators, being now against him to a man, for many of them had witnessed the whole occurrence, they closed in between him and the boys, so that by the time the officer reached the spot, Nip and Tuck had extricated themselves and were walking off as if nothing had happened, while the bareheaded broker was making the air tingle with expressions that would not have sounded well in polite society. End of chapter 4.